Okay, it is about that time. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so happy to be here. Um, my presentation is titled Automating the Brainstorm with ChatGPT. My name is Olivia Peltier and my pronouns are she, her. I want to say thank you so much to Library 2.0 for putting this on, for including my presentation, for expanding the entire mini conference so that I can give this presentation and talk about this tool. And also thank you to Future of AI. Let's see, here we go. I did start the recording. And again, thank you for the support from Future of AI. All right, so just a little bit about me. Again, my name is Olivia Peltier. I am an instruction librarian at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. We are a mid-sized university about halfway between New Orleans, Louisiana and Houston, Texas in the US. So, kind of a like small city, big town in between pretty close distance to some bigger cities. We have a little over 15,000 students and about 1,000 staff members. We were recently granted R1 status, which means that we're a research-focused university. So there's been even more emphasis on supporting research activities in recent years, and of course, trying to retain that status. Still, though, my focus is mostly on first-year undergraduate students. So I see about 2,000 students a year in the classroom. They are mostly in first-year experience classes or in first-year English and writing classes. And I teach them basic information literacy, which is mainly in the form of one-shot instruction sessions. If you're an instruction librarian, like you know what this is all about, right? And most of the time that really looks more like a how-to demonstration on navigating library resources. I try to sneak in as much conceptual thinking as I can, but inevitably our time is mostly taken up with the nuts and bolts of literature searching. Click here, right? Of course, as an information professional, I'm always trying to figure out how can I take the little bit of time that I have, which is like 50 or 75 minutes, and that's total class time. How can I take that little bit of time and make it bigger and make it mean more? So like many, I've been wondering how I might make the mechanics of finding information easier and more automatic for students so that I can basically get them thinking more. But of course, our thinking is flooded with lots of other ideas and a lot of fears about AI. So this probably looks really familiar to those of you in academia. This conversation on how generative AI and academia cross over at this point. And as I mentioned, a lot of fears, one of those being that large language models threaten creative work. Truly creative original work becomes less valuable if, generative AI can just reproduce it on its own or produce it on its own. It presents challenges to instructors who are tasked with evaluating student work. Brings in this conversation of, is using generative AI plagiarism, right? Is it your own work anymore? And then ownership and credit becomes blurry. So if you do use it, how are you crediting it? Who does it really belong to? Is it the prompt generator or is it the actual model putting the text out there, right? And most universities are not really providing much guidance. And if they are, it's to teaching faculty. There's not a lot of conversation that I've heard from upper administration, university top level of, well, how does this affect our librarians? How does this affect libraries who are helping us get to all that information and use these tools? And on that last point, what really drives it home for me is that all of these other points that I've mentioned that really feel like they're the center point of this discussion of generative AI and academia, none of them are really my problem, right? I don't evaluate student work for quality or for plagiarism. I basically never see their end product. But what I do have to contend with are the policies of their instructors who have, these real concerns. So AI at my university, at UL Lafayette. Discussion is very limited. Whenever I joined the faculty last year, there were some administrators who presented at our orientation who talked about AI and mostly like how scared we all are, right? And the difficulties ahead. And they promised that more direction from above was going to be coming. As of now, we have no university policy. We have no resources for faculty that's coming from the top. we just have the kind of blanket recommendation to include some statement about use of AI in your syllabus, but it's at the instructor's discretion. So what I've noticed is that our distance learning department, which is perhaps our only department with any big focus on providing instructors with new technology, they've kind of taken on this responsibility of sharing information about AI tools. So they're constantly hosting tech talks about different tools, having open, honest conversations about how they can be used both on the instructor side, generating content for your courses, and how they might be used on the student side as well, and of course, AI use detection. But what I also noticed, because I'm interested in this, so I'm going to things, and I also want to take that opportunity to be in the same room as instructors and talk with them about what they're doing with it. The people who are engaging in the offerings that the distance learning office is offering, is there are people who are already using them and thinking about them and talking about these tools. So it's not really doing much to dispel any fear over AI use by students. And it's also not really that helpful for instructors to see how they might incorporate it in a meaningful way. So in addition to teaching one-shots, I'm also embedded in some courses. So I pulled a couple of sample policies from 2 courses that I'm embedded in where I actually get to see their syllabi. So the first basically saying, nope, don't do it, right? That's the intent. But what it actually says is do not use AI tools in the writing process. So it doesn't say anything about the reading process or the brainstorming process or the research process. It really specifically says writing process, yet its intent is kind of not at all. The second one I think is much better. It intentionally leaves a lot of room for using AI if you want, and specifically addresses pretty much the main use that would not be allowed, which is just using it to write your paper. And I know from working with flustered students at 10 p.m. at the reference desk that if you say as the instructor, do not use online sources, when what you mean is don't cite a Reddit post, they think that they won't even be able to use journals that are discovered online through our databases, right? So we have to be pretty clear with them about what is and isn't allowed and why, right? Okay, so back to my problem, which is how do I give tools to my students to both make their lives easier and free up space in my limited instruction time to tackle what I want to, all while dancing around these policies that are very much unknown to me most of the time. So while I'm always trying to make their lives easier, so one thing I introduced this semester is this database quick search LibGuide. So I like the idea of giving them access to a few different databases in class and empowering them to branch out beyond just our initial discovery layer. But I know that if it's too many clicks away, they're unlikely to actually use it. So what I want to do is make just one page that I funnel them to that has direct search boxes instead of giving them, 10 different links to follow. So this screen grab here is just kind of one section that I have with some interdisciplinary databases, gives them direct search box. They can type something in here, go in through our discovery service, as well as like a few other specific databases that are interdisciplinary that they might want to use. So I thought, let's add some tools in there to help them brainstorm, right? Connect ideas, do their background research, and beef up their searches, right? Because one of the things that's really hard to hammer into them is you're not going to put in 2 search terms and have the perfect search and have everything handed right there on a silver platter, right? It's an iterative process. We have to keep doing it over and over again. And again, thinking about like, how do I make this a direct use thing? So I did a little bit of research. I was, working with our IT people on, I need this widget and that widget. I want to add this database. How could I do that with maybe using ChatGPT? So I found actually a Reddit post talking about this tool called Pickaxe, which calls itself a no-code tool to create a user interface using a ChatGPT prompt. And since I haven't been a coder since my MySpace days, this seemed like a really good option. No code, like you got me. So this is kind of what the back end looks like. You can see it has some different options. So you put your prompt in there. You add where you might want the user to fill in the blank. You can even input your own knowledge base if you like. There are specific things that you want it to learn. And then here's what the back end of mine looks like. So I was trying to create really easy, direct use, fill in the blank prompt to give students, starting with just maybe some very basic, maybe it's just one word, their research topic isn't very developed yet, and to help them expand on that and create a lot of different iterations they can use in a lot of different searches. So here is, yeah, that's what it looks like on the back end. And here's what it looks like on the user end. This is just a screen grab. And there's some more things that you can customize that you may want to play with that I don't think I customized all that much, to be honest. And so I'll just play this little demo that I recorded. And as you can see within the LibGuide, I have kind of some extra directions above the widget just to kind of help guide them on exactly what to put in the prompt because the fill in the blank ness of it wasn't super obvious, I felt like. So yeah, just a little bit of extra direction that goes along with it. And this is just, again, a really quick scroll. So you can kind of see some of the types of different iterations that it gives you putting in that sample research topic. And something that's really cool about Pickaxe is that you can go back and you can see all of its uses. So you can kind of evaluate what type of inputs are working, and then maybe use that information to either tweak the prompt or those extra instructions that you put along with it. So some things that might be useful would be maybe to phrase the prompt to use your full research question or thesis. I was kind of thinking about it as knowing that a lot of my students who might use this tool are starting from a really broad base and might need even some ideas, like maybe you go a few more rounds of cats, right? And then that gives you some more ideas, and then you can get more specific from there until you find your actual search terms. It might also be helpful maybe tweak the prompt to give outputs using search queries that use Boolean logic, some type of things like that, maybe even using that knowledge base, put in the ACRL framework, something like that. I think there's a lot of different things you could do with it. And I love that you can go back and see what kind of things are your users getting. So then you can make it better from there. So making this presentation was the first time I even went back into my Pickaxe account from implementing this at the beginning of the semester. And I can see, yeah, some of them got really great outputs. Some of them not as much. I found that even just doing 2 different runs of the same exact prompt, just to make that little screen grab that I showed y'all, gave me some slightly different responses. So it all goes, hand in hand with continuing your instruction of like iterative process, right? Try it again, tweak it. Take one of the search terms that it gave you and put it back into it and, see what it gets from there. And definitely important, just like with any other task we give to a chatbot or another generative tool, take things with a grain of salt, right? Try different approaches. And be aware of the limitations. So what's next? So I put this LibGuide on the document that I share with students when I've had time, pointed it out in class. Like I said, I'm trying to funnel them to that LibGuide to help get them to some different direct search boxes. When I've had time, I've pointed out specifically those AI tools and the brainstorming tools. And by the way, one of the times that I did that, I had a professor chime in and say, hey, I know our syllabus says don't use AI ever at all, but this isn't what I meant, right? So totally goes back to working with professors on this is what it means and this is what it doesn't mean. This is what we can do. And this is what, maybe you don't want them to do. But I'd really like to incorporate it in class to the point that maybe I'm not even asking students to spend time brainstorming from scratch anymore. I just have them use this tool to kickstart, to, as the title of my presentation says, really fully automate that brainstorm for them. Because it's a tool that's not probably going away. It's only going to change and morph and probably become bigger in our lives. And I think it's a perfectly reasonable usage of that tool that does not infringe on academic honesty or freedom or, original creative content. But it also helps me because if I can free up class time and also free up some of that bandwidth for them, I can talk about the really important stuff, like what not to ask chatbots for, right? And some of these other really exciting, brand new information literacy issues that now we have to contend with. So that is all I have for you. I want to say thank you so much. Now I'll open the floor up to questions, comments, suggestions. I'd definitely love to hear there are other instructors in the room. How are you incorporating AI tools into your one-shots, or how are you addressing these new issues? I'm also going to go ahead and drop the code for my widget in the chat if you want to use it. But like I said, it's very easy to use. Hop on Pickaxe and you may want to customize yours a bit more. So I'll drop that link to Pickaxe as well. Yeah. So I'll look in the chat and see if we have any questions there, or feel free to hop on with your mic and ask a question if you have one. Yes, free version of Pickaxe. Yes. Do you then have to get them to expand their thoughts? Yeah, so I think if I'm understanding that question correctly, it's kind of like automating the easy part, right? Because it's not all that different from just telling them to use a thesaurus. So that's not really a skill that requires a ton of development. So why spend a bunch of time doing that? Let's automate that a little bit and make it a little bit easier so that then, yes, you have that more time to take what the chatbot gives you and think about that more instead of just having to spend time coming up with, keywords. And yes, getting them to understand that concept can be difficult. So if you can find a prompt that really generates the type of keywords that we're looking for, the type of words we're looking for, then yeah, I think it can. We have so many tools, like using a calculator, not to say that to understand what keywords are isn't useful, but if you can skip that step and get to just the using part and understand a later part of the process better, then, that's great. What feedback have you gotten from students versus faculty? Yeah, so like I mentioned, I've shown it in a handful of classes. I had that one class where the professor was like, oh, I love this. This is great. And this is totally not what I meant when I said, please don't use AI ever. Haven't heard anything back from students. But I thought it was really cool to go back and see what they had done, and just to see that they had used it at all was really satisfying. But that's a great question and might be a good follow-up survey or study or something. Yes, I'm getting to sharing it. I'm sorry I didn't realize I wouldn't be able to copy and paste it out of my notes here in presenter view, but I'll do that in just a second. Yes. So someone is asking if I have socials. I'll just drop my email in here because I'm not a big social media person. So if you have more questions, if you didn't catch the code or whatever when I get to that, so let me go ahead and stop my share so that I can use those things again. Here we go. Yeah, you can just reach out to me directly. It's definitely fine. Okay, link and code going into the chat now. Or not. Does anyone have any reason why this isn't working? Copy. It doesn't want to paste into the chat. I'm so sorry. Oh yeah, maybe character limit. Let's see if it'll do just this. Yeah, thank you. Someone posted the LibGuide. Yeah, so if you want to just go to my LibGuide and you can see it there. And then if you want the code, how about you just email me? I can also talk with Library 2.0 people. So whenever they post the recording, I can maybe post a little doc with the code for you. But yeah, does anyone have any other questions? I love how I'm talking about, technology, and I can't even get I can't even paste. Let me try one more time with one of those suggestions y'all had. There we go. Okay. Does your library support trying all these AI tools? Are you limited to free versions or will they pay for some? Are you sharing your AI learning with other library staff? Ooh, really good questions. Okay, so our library, will it pay for some? Definitely not. What most people who try newer things here is just pay for stuff themselves until they can kind of make a good case for it. Or just using the free version. That's not a great practice, but it's definitely not something that's being talked about library-wide in our institution. It's kind of a small minority who are working on these innovations. Also, our instruction team is 2 people who are full-time instructors, including myself, and then 2.5 with a grad assistant, other people who sometimes instruct. So, when you're in a smaller place, it's hard to make that space for yourself for trying new things. Am I sharing AI learning with other library staff? That's a great idea. Yes, one of my colleagues who's actually, she's a support staff and she's getting her library degree right now, was telling me about something she was working on. I was like, hey, I have a widget for that. But that's a great point. It would be a really great tool to share with everyone who works the desk, because questions like these are things we get to our, reference and research help pretty often. And demoing, I think that's a really good point, and something that I for sure forget about is sharing what we're doing with the of rest of the library. Yeah, really great point. Yeah, any last questions? Nice. I'm seeing suggestions about LLM. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to look into that for sure. All right, y'all. Not seeing any more questions, just a lot of thank yous. And thank you so much. Language learning. Oh, duh. Thank you. Oh yeah, that's true. They can code things for you. That's a really good idea. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to stop this and close out the meeting.